the way things are going at the moment, there is absolutely no way anybody else is going to win a race this year.
David Hobbs may be right. Team McLaren has a monopoly on victory thus far this year's World Driving Championship. Race after race, the victors have had one thing in common. Their cars are McLaren.
The car is so good that we can almost win every race, and it's going to be difficult to fight against Ayrton around the season.
It's a combination of a lot of things. I like to think we've got the best chassis, I think we have the best engine, and I believe we've got the two best drivers, and hopefully the team to back them up with. I feel happy for everybody, really. It's a team effort. I mean, I'm technical director, but we have a very large group of very talented people, and I'm very happy to be back on top again.
McLaren is perfect, chassis, driver, engine. But the chassis is very good and the engine is very strong. We have half-half. I would say in the moment half-half.
Can anybody challenge the McLarens? Ferrari, Arrows, anybody?
Not a monkey's chance. Not possible. They're on another planet. I think it's possible that they'll win every race this year. I think it's definite they'll be in the pole position every year. Now, if that's not an accomplishment, you tell me what is.
4-0 for McLaren so far. What will happen here in Montreal? Stay tuned and find out. It started in Brazil, went to San Marino in Italy, then to Monte Carlo, and lastly to Mexico City in the fight for the World Driving Championship. In each case, it was the McLaren car in victory lane. Hi, everyone. I'm Chris Economaki here at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve on the outskirts of Montreal in the middle of the St. Lawrence Seaway for round 5 of the World Driving Championship. Working with us is distinguished British motoring writer Nigel Roebuck. Nigel, everyone is waiting for the personality conflict to flare up between the fleet Frenchman Alain Prost and the brave Brazilian Ayrton Senna. Will we see these drivers go at each other here in Canada?
It's possible. I think they both have too much sense for that. Prost certainly has now got a considerable points lead. He knows he doesn't have to win here. He's second would suit him very well for the next 2 races. He would like to beat Senna simply to maintain his position as the world's best driver, but I can't see them doing anything silly, either of them.
So apparently the question here in Canada is, who will finish third? And for more we expect from trackside, let's go down to my colleague, John Bizignano.
Thank you, Chris. Well, as you can see, the final preparations, they're going into these 2 McLarens just before the start of the Canadian Grand Prix. Now, one of the most difficult things to determine is how much fuel these cars are going to use on this very fuelish circuit. Could be a disadvantage to the turbocharged cars. We asked Michele Alboreto of Ferrari exactly how much of a disadvantage the Turbo Boys are going to have here in Canada.
I think it will be very difficult to finish this race for the turbo cars. We must reduce a lot the power of our engines, and I think it could be a good race for the normal aspirated cars.
So it could be the closing laps of this Canadian Grand Prix that are actually the most exciting. And that's why you should stay with us after these messages as the drama unfolds at the Canadian Grand Prix. We'll be right back.
ESPN Speed World, live coverage of the Grand Prix of Canada, is brought to you by BF Goodrich TAs and the new all-weather Comp TA. By the Acura Legend and Integra, precision-crafted performance, exclusively at your Acura dealer. And by Quaker State Motor Oil, the big Q stands for quality. Always has, always will.
And yesterday's final qualifying session was on. Look what happened to Derek Warwick on a dirty track. His arrows got sideways, the front end hit the inner curb, the nose piece flew off, and then the wind got under it, held it up. On landing on the inside of the track, it bounded up once again. The left front corner hit the ground, came back down on the track, and slammed backwards into the seam guardrail at a terrific clip. Let's go down now to John Bizignano for more on that issue.
Well, thank you, Chris. As you can see, another miracle in Formula One. We're having more of these ever since the Pope visited the Ferrari factory, actually. Derek Warwick being strapped into the exact same car. 2 corners of that car were totally demolished yesterday. One heck of an endorsement to the Arrows chassis, again carbon fiber safety in Formula One, and the crew that worked all night long. He took the other car, the spare car, out this morning for a bit of a warm-up, but he got back into the crashed car and says, this is my old friend, and we're going to do it this weekend in the car that was actually crashed yesterday. The McLaren team, well, all the turbo teams on this grid, they're trying to squeeze that last drop of fuel into their fuel cells. Some of them are actually filling the filler cap and actually turning it over with an ounce of fuel into it. Of course, this is one of the most fuelish tracks in Formula One. The Ferraris, we couldn't find out why, but they're drilling some holes in the bodywork trying to get a little bit of extra cooling now that it is the warmest day after 3 days of qualifying and practice. Philippe Striff, very good this weekend, putting his normally aspirated AGS well up the grid. Everything okay with that team? And darn it, the Williams boys, they say they're down on power. They can't find the problem. They don't know if it's fixed. They've changed electrics. They've changed just about everything they could, but it's still a mystery to them. The Williams boys both down on power.
Okay, 31 cars showed up for this race and 26 made it. So let's take a look at how they'll line up. Ayrton Senna, the Brazilian Bullet, has done it again. His 5th straight pole position. Here at a record 120.226 miles an hour, he'll lead the field when the green light goes on today. Alongside his Marlboro McLaren teammate, Frenchman Alain Prost, a 31-time winner on the Grand Prix circuit, considered one of the best in the business. Third is Gerhard Berger of Austria in a Ferrari, one of the challengers, and alongside Berger will be his teammate Michele Alboreto of Italy. Then it's Alessandro Nannini of Italy in a Benetton Ford, the fastest of the non-turbo drivers. 3-time world champion Nelson Piquet in a Lotus Honda is next, followed by Terry Boutsen of Belgium in a Benetton Ford. Then it's American Eddie Cheever in an Arrows Megatron looking for his first Grand Prix victory. Briton Nigel Mansell in a Williams Judd will challenge today, and Frenchman Philippe Striff in an AGS Ford way up in the lineup. Italian Riccardo Patrese in a Williams Judd is next, followed by his Italian neighbor Andrea De Cesaris in a Riel, and De Cesaris had his troubles in the morning warm-up. Then it's Japanese ace Satoru Nakajima in a Lotus Honda, Italian Ivan Capelli in a March Judd, Italian Stefano Modin in a Eurobrun Ford, Britisher Derek Warwick in an Arrows Megatron, Frenchman Philippe Alliot in an LNC Lola, Mauricio Gugelmin of Brazil in a March Judd, Briton Jonathan Palmer in a Tyrrell Ford, Frenchman René Arnoux in a Ligier Judd, a Spaniard Luis Perez Sala in a Minardi Ford, Italian Piercarlo Ginzani in a Zaxspeed, newcomer Julian Bailey in a Tyrrell Ford, Argentine Oscar Larrauri in a Eurobrun Ford, Stefan Johansson of Sweden in a Ligier Judd, and last is Gabriele Tarquini of Italy in a Coloni Ford. 8 turbos and 18 free breathers make up the lineup today. And now for a look at the circuit, here's Nigel Roebuck.
We're at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal, 2.74 miles to the lap and 14 turns. There have been revisions since we were last here in 2 years. This is now going past the new pits complex, down into turn 1, which is taken in second gear at 65 miles an hour. Turn 2 also in second, 65, 70 miles an hour. Accelerating out, up into third and down to turn 3. And now down to second gear, again taken at around 65 miles an hour. Out of 3, through 4, up through the gearbox into 4th and down to 5. Now we're up into 5th gear, coming down to turn 6 in second gear, and through 7 still in second. Accelerating now 3rd, 4th and 5th. This is bumpy here, and we're up around 160 miles an hour. And we're approaching turn 8, which is taken in second. 70 miles an hour, 80 miles an hour through here. Up into 3rd, 4th, 5th, and into 6th. And now we're coming down to turn 10, which is the hairpin at the end of the lap, taken in second gear. Accelerating out of here, right up through the gearbox, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th. It's extremely bumpy here, past the old pit section. And we're coming into the ultra-fast swerves, which are taken at about 170 miles an hour, 175 even by the really quick guys. We're out onto the fastest part of the circuit, nudging 190, and coming down to turn 14, where Derek Warwick crashed yesterday, which is taken in third. This is the end of the lap past the new pits complex.
Okay, nice job, Nigel. This track is really a tough one. Its widest point is 39 feet, now to 32.5 feet. The important thing about it, it takes 37 gear changes per lap, most of any circuit we've been to so far this year. This means that the winner will shift gears 2,553 times, or once every 2.2 seconds, and it's very, very tough on the brakes. We've got a beautiful day here, 82 degrees, clear and breezy. It's going to even get a little bit warmer before the day is out. No chance of rain until later tonight, so we should have a very fine day. The track here was named after the late Gilles Villeneuve, who lived not far from here. He scored his first Grand Prix victory here for Ferrari in 1978, inaugural of the track, and he was second to Jody Scheckter in 1979. He lost his life during a qualifying session at Zolder in Belgium 6 years ago. Okay, Nigel Roebuck, we're going to pick 6. Who do you pick to win this race?
I take Alain Prost. I always take Alain Prost, and 1 race in 4, I'm right. Boots in second, Senna third, Alboreto fourth, Streff 5, and Palmer 6.
Okay, John Bizignani, can you hear me? Let's have your picks.
Well, my picks, they are with Ayrton Senna, of course, in the other McLaren right up front there. With Nannini, normally aspirated, I think Nannini has to do it this time around. Berger, Ferrari, and Alboreto, Ferrari. They've shown an awful lot of reliability, the Ferraris, so I think both of them have a good chance of finishing again, and I have picked them for 3rd and 4th place, respectively. Eddie Cheever, the only American in the race. Again, the Arrows team has been very, very dependable all year long. They've only had 1 DNF with one of their cars out of 4 Grand Prix, and Streif in his normally aspirated AGS got last point for 6th.
Well, as you can see, I've chosen Alessandro Nannini. After going through the pits this morning, I think the turbos are all going to run out of fuel. Nannini and Boutsen in the Benettons 1 and 2. Prost will nurse his turbo to 3rd. Nigel Mansell will be 4th. Jonathan Palmer 5th, and Ricardo Patrese 6th. I know you're going to raise your eyebrows at that, but they tell me this track really uses up the fuel. So the cars have taken their formation lap. Should be down on the grid now, and it shouldn't be too long before we're going to see a start of the Canadian Grand Prix here at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. A huge crowd. They've had record turnouts Friday and record turnouts yesterday, and with the beautiful weather we have today, it should be a great crowd. You can see the new complex there. 41 suites on top of these garages. They sold for $15,000 apiece. That's $610,000 in rentals that has been taken in so far, and the race hasn't even started yet, Nigel.
No, that's incredible. Incredible.
It really is. The beautiful garages there. How does this compare with other circuits around the world, Nigel?
Oh, very well. Very well. I mean, they still look not quite completed in some ways, but the pit lane is huge, and the pits themselves are massive. The mechanics are thrilled with them.
Now, this island here is man-made. It was filled in with the dirt taken out of the subways in Montreal. It was made for Expo 67, and the Olympics in 1976 were held here. You can see part of what was once the United States Pavilion on this Ile Notre Dame, as it's called. There's a large number of grandstands around, and you can see the fans are voicing their pleasures, the Ferrari flags, and there are a great number of the green flags with the yellow circle in the middle, fans from Brazil. And now here we have the cars are pulling off. Remember now, the lineup shows that Ayrton Senna is on the pole. He's coming into position. Senna is the car on the left. His teammate Alain Prost is on the right. Remember now, in 4 Grand Prix races, 3 out of the 4 Grand Prix races that have been held, the race has been won in the first 200 feet. So pay close attention. When the last car pulls up out there, what's the schedule on the lights? How does that work in time, Nigel?
The red light comes on. When they're all in place, the red light comes on, and then any time in the next 7 seconds, they will get a green.
And that means the race is underway. Let's hope we have a safe start here. As we said, there's a lot of gear changes going on. Pop-off valve problems in one of the McLarens throughout practice. We hope that doesn't prevail today. And the man in the back is signaling that everything looks good from where he stands to the light, as you can see. And here we have a start. And boy, look at the zigzagging back and forth. We've got to wait to see who got the break on that. Lots of cloud, and it appears that they all got away. And it's McLaren's 1 and 2 into turn, the button hook, a left turn, and then a right sweeper as they pull around going through the gears.
It's Alain Prost in front, Chris.
Prost. And the Ferraris are 3rd and 4th, and the Benettons are 5th and 6th with the Lotus right behind. And now the question is, will these McLaren cars dominate this event as they have in the past? It was a nice start, Nigel, and they strung out safely. Happy for that.
A clean start, yes. The McLarens should be in good shape, but they are, of course, like all the turbos, restricted to 150 litres.
Well, now, you know...
and which is crucial today. This is a very fuel-heavy circuit.
This morning's practice, the McLarens were not at the top of the table. They're obviously worried about fuel, and they took their time. The Ferraris were the fastest cars, and as you can see here, the Ferraris are third or fourth, right behind Prost and Senna.
That's true, but in fact, Ferrari, I understand from them, are even more concerned about fuel than the McLaren are. So I really can't say at this stage who's going to have a problem and who isn't, but they're all expecting a problem with their turbos.
Gerhard Berger said last night that they cannot run more than a 128. Now, you remember now that the best time in this morning's practice was a 126 in practice, qualifying with 121, so they're operating here at less than optimum right now.
Very much so, and they will have to the whole race.
It's interesting, in coming up to the lead lap here, and usually the McLarens are gone by now.
That's right.
This is going to be great television because we're going to be able to see more than just one car on the screen. There's a great shot from the Goodyear blimp through that first turn. I like to call it the button hook. Now they're beginning to outdistance the rest of the field. We said earlier there's 8 turbos and 18 normally aspirated or free-breathing cars in the competition. There's a lot of high hope for the Ford.
That's Bailey struggling back to the pits.
Right. That's over watching a stock car race for a moment.
And that's Sala in with the rear wing and rear bodywork missing.
Something is gone. He's had a tough start in Formula One, hasn't he?
He has.
Okay, there's Alain Prost. 2 car lengths behind is Ayrton Senna. And next is, hard to tell on these TV screens, Gerhard Berger, Michele Alboreto, and then Nannini
Boutsen. And then Nannini.
Oh, Boutsen first and then Nannini.
Yes. I think we need to remember, Chris, that the normally aspirated cars are not restricted on fuel, and the Benettons have extra large tanks here, where they have 215 litres of fuel, which is in fact 65 litres more than the turbos are allowed. So in theory, they can go as hard as they can the whole race.
Well, you know, we checked the pits this morning on this fuel situation. We found out that, let's go down to John Bisignano for what's going on in the Tyrrell pit.
Thank you, Chris. Very early in this race, we have Julian Bailey, the British driver, in with the Tyrrell. He certainly made contact at the start. Part of the wing went up into the air, and now they are trying to change the wing and or the nose. Also, we believe Sala came in with the Minardi with his rear wing gone. But Bailey is getting out of the car. I'll tell you what, I see some fluid coming out of the bottom of the car. They have probably injured the brake reservoirs, and also one of the trailing arms on the front suspension has been snapped. So there has been one heck of an impact actually here on this right front corner of this Tyrrell, and unfortunately Julian Bailey's race really only lasted about 100 yards. Back to you, Chris.
Thanks very much. We're just going to go back. We'll take another look at the start and see how this field got going when the green light went on here at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal. Now there you can see that Alain Prost actually moved a bit quicker than Ayrton Senna. Look at the 2 and 3 wide action here. Now, there's the wing. We could just see it on the Bailey's car. It didn't look as though anybody hit him. Obviously, there was some contact.
No, that's right.
You think it just fell apart?
Well, it's unlikely, but I suppose it's possible.
Right. Well, somebody is going to be looking for a job in that crew if that's the case. And here come the leaders. It's Prost, Senna, Berger, Alboreto, Nannini, and Boutsen. And those normally aspirated cars are staying right with the turbo. We did a lot of checking, as they started to say, along the garages this morning. I sort of wonder why the amount of fuel that the non-turbos were starting out with. One with 196, another with 205, 195, 180. We got to the March crew and we said, how many liters are you starting with? And the team manager said, well, we're starting with 195. We'd like to start with 210, but we can't fit that much in the car. Even the non-turbos are concerned with fuel consumption here, Nigel.
Yes. In fact, with the work the engine manufacturers have had to do, the turbo engines are actually more fuel efficient than the normally aspirated one.
Okay, let's go once again to the pits and John Bisignano.
Thank you, Chris. We're with Julian Bailey down here from England. A very short race for you, Julian. What happened on the start?
Well, there was a lot of pushing and shoving at the back there, and I happened to touch somebody else's wheel and just rode up on the back of them. And I was fortunate there wasn't a bigger accident, in fact. But my car's finished for the day, so that's me. I'm going home.
In a situation like that, you have to be very careful to be moving forward, or the people behind you are going to have a collision with the rear of your gearbox and so forth. Steering was damaged. It looked like the brakes were a problem. How did you manage to do one lap?
Well, I just thought I'd get it back here and see if we could fix it. I knew we couldn't, but I brought it back anyway.
Good luck in Detroit next weekend.
Thanks a lot. Okay.
Chris, back to you.
All right, thank you very much. Now, it's tough break for this British newcomer. It's his first year in Formula One, and he's really had tough luck right from the outset, missing a couple of races. Well, the McLarens are out in front as usual, but they are not running away. Gerhard Berger is staying there. It must be difficult, Nigel, for these drivers not to be able to use the full speed and power of their cars. They have to baby them in order to get the race finished.
Very much so, very much so. It's been like this as long as since we've had fuel restrictions in Formula One. It's been this way, and the drivers all find it extremely frustrating. But those are the rules, and the game is to go the distance on the fuel you have.
Well, if we could get some lap times, we'd find out whether they're operating according to plan. One of the interesting aspects of the McLarens and the Lotuses is that their engine people, the Honda people, have telemetry. And they're getting the radio information to put in the computers along pit road, and they know exactly whether they're on schedule or not. Now, none of the other teams have telemetry. The driver himself has to dictate whether he's going fast enough or perhaps too fast to get to the finish line with the fuel that's on board. And hopefully, as this race goes on, we'll be able to find out from those people down on the pit road whether or not McLaren and Lotus are on schedule from a fuel standpoint. Okay, here's national champion or world champion Nelson Piquet, followed by one of the Williams cars, and we'll be back for more of this nice Canadian Grand Prix after this commercial pause. Finished a few hours ago over in the Loire Valley in France, and it was a victory for the British Jaguar team, with a Dutchman, Jan Lammers, leading two Britishers, Johnny Dumfries and Andy Wallace. A Porsche was second in the same lap with German driver Hans Stuck and Klaus Ludwig and British star Derek Bell. And another Porsche 962 was third with John Winter of West Germany, Frank Chelinski of Denmark, and Stanley Dickens of Sweden. And our own David Hobbs, who's taking a day off from Formula One race today, came home fifth in a Porsche with Swedish driver Didier Tays, and the Americans, the Andretti family, Mario and his two sons Michael and John, were sixth place. Congratulations to these gentlemen for their great performance at the 24 Hours of Le Mans, the first victory of Jaguar since 1957. And our Formula One competition here continues to be McLaren, McLaren, Ferrari, Ferrari, Benetton, Benetton. Team, team, team.
Absolutely.
They almost locked together here.
I think at this point they're all running very carefully and very cautiously, Chris. I think they're just, feeling it out, seeing what the fuel situation is going to be.
I wonder at what point the racing will begin.
Well, quite often it never begins, Chris, the way the rules are at the moment.
Well, Nannini's fairly new to Formula One racing, a few years along. We may see him start to feel his oats and try to put a pass on Michele Alboreto there.
Yes, yes.
Boutsen, of course, is a very sensible driver. He has a lot more experience than Nannini. As soon as you see how many starts they have. Boutsen is starting his 78th race, where Nannini doesn't have nearly that many. Instead, we have 8 drivers in the race who have won in Formula One competition over the years. Riccardo Patrese, who in a sense is a senior member from experience, he's in his 165th Grand Prix race. Nelson Piquet in his 146th. The old man of the sport, Rene Arnoux, in his 130th. And Alain Prost, this is his 126th start. When you think about that, in 125 starts, he's won 31 times. And as you said, Nigel, every 4th time he puts his helmet on, he wins. What an average.
Right.
He's just the kind of average A.J. Foyt had in the United States a few years ago.
And it's unapproached by anybody
now,
in current Formula One.
Alboreto seems to be allowing Berger to pull away. I wonder if this is some team strategy.
It could be. I don't think either of them are going particularly hard at the moment. I think they are aware they have a major fuel problem, and I think they're both taking it relatively easily. You noticed Berger was right on Senna's tail a couple of laps ago, but now they've they're really falling away.
Well, we're 7 laps into this competition, and 7 tenths of a second is spread between Prost and Senna. And Berger is third, about 2 and 3 tenths seconds behind, and Alboreto is a little over 5 seconds behind. So this is quite a close interval by Formula One standard. He's heading around after the first turn up this track. The drivers say that this track is without question the toughest, with the possible exception of Detroit, on brakes. There are so many high-speed sections followed by very slow corners, which is one of the reasons we see so many gear shifts. What about brakes? When you overuse them, Nigel, are they going to lose their efficiency before the day is out?
Yes, they certainly are. They certainly are. There are a tremendous number of second-gear corners on this circuit, as you say, at the end of fast sections, Chris. So you have to be just baby everything here, brakes and fuel, and that's why the first 3/4 of the race is probably going to be something of an economy drive.
Somebody put a wheel off there, kicked up a bit of dust. You know, it's interesting. Of all the forms of motorsport, Formula One is unquestionably the highest tech, more advanced materials and so forth, computer software, telemetry. And despite all of this high-tech character of these cars, there's not an automatic transmission to be found.
No, there isn't. Ferrari are working on one, and they will have one next year, but at the moment there isn't, and never has.
Okay, let's go down now to the pits. John Visignano for something on telemetry.
Well, thank you, Chris. You were just talking about all the high tech in Formula One, and as you can see, the McLaren computers are humming away here behind me. These are all Epson computers from Japan, and what's going on with them is that every time the two McLarens pass a magnetic strip out on the racetrack, they give a reading of every indication to the engine and the fuel situation that the team management here can analyze. Now, Ron Dennis very rarely leaves the pit wall, and we have counted 6 times back and forth that he's been checking the computer. So obviously, when they were filling those cars with the last drop of fuel possible, that same thinking is top of mind to Ron Dennis, the owner of McLaren, at this moment. And I'm sure that 6th trip will go into double figures here very soon. So it's the Epson computers at the moment that are managing the McLaren Marlboro team.
Okay, there's one of the Europe runs without a nose piece, and we'll be back for more of the Canadian Grand Prix after these commercial messages. With 10 of 69 laps in the books, let's go back a few laps and watch. The last car, Oscar Larawi, dives underneath one of the Ligier Lotos. Watch the nose piece on a quick nose job at no charge. Sends Argentine driver Oscar Larawi to pit road for a new nose piece on his Europe run car. Just one of the many hazards of close-in Formula One racing. Here, Gerhard Berger, who lies third in the number 28 Ferrari, chasing the leader. So far, Ayrton Senna on the 8th lap with a 1:26.525 has set the fastest lap of the race. It'll be interesting to see if that's challenged as this competition unfolds. Here's a close-up look at Alan Prost's style, the professor, the little man, who drives so well and is so confident. Jackie Stewart feels that he is one of the finest drivers he has ever seen in any kind of racing. We had a chance to chat with Jackie this morning here on assignment for Canadian Broadcasting Company. Short interval there, Nigel, between those two cars. I wonder if they're operating under strict team orders.
I wouldn't think they're operating under team orders, Chris. Team orders as such don't exist at McLaren. They feel that the two drivers have the discipline to deal with whatever situation comes up. But I think at the moment, Prost won't want to go too quickly, obviously, because of fuel worries. And Senna is bright enough to know that Prost will have thought it out. Well, so I think he's probably, for the moment, should be happy to sit there. Because as long as he's sitting there in Prost's fuel slipstream, of course, he is saving fuel himself.
Well, let me ask you a question, Nigel. Senna's fastest lap, 1:26.5.
Yeah.
4 seconds slower than he qualified. We don't usually see that much of a spread, do we?
Not too much these days, no. But with similar situation does apply at certain circuits, and they all said this morning the race will be run at a far slower pace than anything we've seen in practice.
It's interesting to watch. We did a lot of fuel checking this morning and found out what fuel weighed, got a lot of technical information. But the thing that registered the most with us is that every time these cars come by, are an outpost, they're 4 pounds lighter than they were the last time around. It takes over 4 pounds of fuel to power one of these cars 1 lap on this 2.74-mile circuit. It's interesting to me. They'll be featherweights when they get to the end of the line, and of course that's one reason why the drivers break to a stop the moment the checkered flag waves, because a car that's 3 pounds underweight could be disqualified.
Yes.
So they don't take what we call the cool-off lap.
The thing that's interesting to me, Chris, is that the Benettons are keeping up with the Ferraris without apparent problem, because the Benettons are very heavy at the moment. They're carrying a lot more fuel than the turbos. They have a power deficit as well, so the fact they can keep with the Ferraris suggests that in the late stages of the race they could be very strong.
Well, you know, I picked Alessandro Nannini to win. Before the race, we had a chance to talk to some of the drivers, and we'll be bringing you their comments as this race unfolds. Here's Gerhard Berger. Those 2 Benettons are filling up his mirrors, believe me. As you say, Nigel, they are close, and, you know, they're under a lot of pressure here. They're going to Detroit next week for the U.S. Grand Prix. The Ford people, Michael Kranipus is here with his arms crossed. And, here's Gerhard Berger. Before the race, we had a chance to talk with this young Austrian star, asking him if he's getting closer to the McLaren.
Looks like it's now at 4 tenths. Looks much better than in the bust, but it's still too slow.
You know, the first race it was 3 seconds, so you are making progress. Where are you catching them? In the chassis or in the engine?
Everywhere.
Everywhere. But unfortunately not quite fast enough. Now here I would think that Alessandro Nannini may just make a move here to put McKelly Alboreto behind him.
In fact, it's Boutsen, I think, Chris, in the first, and there he goes by Berger.
How about that? We got that part right. Well, here we have one of the vaunted Ferrari cars. So many people here with flags waving for Ferrari, being passed by 2 Ford.
Absolutely, and I'm sure Berger must be wisely deciding that if he tries to sit it out with them, he's just going to burn through his fuel.
Here's another look at the pass, and they make it look easy. He almost let them through, don't you think?
Yes, I do.
Sort of an Alphonse and Gaston type of drive. When I spoke to Berger the other night, he was quite disappointed. He said he could not get to the finish line unless he ran 128. And here's Senna's fastest lap is 126.5. So it figures that certainly some cars are going to run out of fuel before this day is out.
I think so.
All right, here are the McLarens 1 and 2, as has been the case all year long. And we'll be back for more of the 1988 Canadian Grand Prix after these messages. Alessandro Nannini is getting out of his Benetton. He's pulled over to the side of the course and parked it on the grass. It's a mechanical problem. And that comes as a surprise. There goes my winner, my pick 6 contest. And the McLarens are closing up here. Senna is not letting Alain Prost get any kind of an edge on him. Less than half a second separates the first and second place cars here. As one of the challengers and a driver that many people thought might win the race today because of the performance of that Benetton Ford is on the sideline. Tough break, Nigel.
Absolutely. Benetton knew before the race they were marginal on overheating problems. They have a fundamental problem with their radiators at the moment, which won't be resolved for another couple of races. And they knew all the way along that overheating was going to be probably their problem. I suspect that may have happened to Nannini.
Well, you know, it's interesting. This racetrack is 50 feet above sea level. Last time out, we were at Mexico City, over 7,000 feet above sea level. And for the normally aspirated cars, they have 22% more horsepower here than they had in Mexico. 22%. That's remarkable.
Yes.
Here's the McLaren starting to lap the first tail ender. The Zaxby car up here, Carlo Ginzani, is now 1 lap down, and he's nursing his fuel too, because that car is capable of better than that.
Yes, absolutely.
Right now, Alain Prost has a .281 second lead over Ayrton Senna. They're in the 16th lap of this 69-lap competition. Boutsen is third, Berger is fourth, Alboreto is fifth, Nelson Piquet is sixth, Nigel Mansell is seventh, Dimitri Streff is eighth, Andrea De Cesaris is ninth, and Ivan Capelli is 10th at this stage of the competition. With only one car out, here's Alessandro Nannini, walks right by our announce booth, moving his hand through his dark, oily black hair with a very disappointed look on his face. Sad break for this handsome new Italian star. I tell you something, Nigel, if these McLarens have enough fuel to get to the last lap, it ought to be something to see.
It should. It should. I know that I was talking to Peter Collins of Benetton just before the start of the race, and he reckoned that this would be Benetton's best race of the year, but he was still sure that the McLarens had enough speed in hand to be able to go the distance and beat everybody.
Here's a couple of former teammates at it.
Yes, a couple of close friends.
Right. That's Nelson Piquet of Brazil and his former teammate Nigel Mansell. I guess they speak now, don't they?
No.
No?
They spit at each other, but they don't speak.
Now. I thought maybe as the weeks went by, they get to say hello to one another, but apparently not. They just don't get along, period. And, you know, Nigel Mansell, he won 6 races last year, and he hasn't got a single point yet. This must be tough for him to, you know, read the points chart.
It must be very tough, and he is actually coping with it extremely well. He just regards this as a year in limbo, with nothing much to lose. Next year, if he stays with Williams, he will have a new Renault V10 engine, and he's looking to the future with optimism.
Well, he was playing, you know, Nigel Mansell loves to play golf, and he played golf here Thursday, and he told one of his partners, who whispered to me Thursday night, that Nigel said that he may not be with this team next year.
It's very possible. I hear his name linked to possibly to Ferrari, who will lose Alboreto at the end of this season, possibly to Benetton.
Well, it's probably going to be a lot of changes in addition to all the new engines that show up on the circuit next year. Remember, this is the last year for the turbocharged cars. They'll all be normally aspirated or free breathers and non-turbo, non-supercharged cars in Formula One starting in 1989, and things should be more evenly matched.
Very much so. Very much so.
All right, John Bisignano has really got his sleeves rolled up today. We hear he's with Alessandro Nannini.
Alessandro, you were looking forward to this race more than anyone before, and now, unfortunately, it's a very short race for you. What went wrong?
Because the car is very quick. There's no problem with the car before, and I think I broken the pump of the fuel.
Could you have won this Canadian Grand Prix today?
Yeah.
Can you win Detroit next week?
I don't know. It's very difficult, Detroit. This is good circuit because the turbo engine is a lot fuel consumption. In Detroit, it's no problem for the fuel consumption. It's very more difficult.
Thank you very much, Alessandro Nannini. What a great young man this is, a gentleman doing the best he can in English. I ask him a question very slowly so he understands it, and then he picks up and speaks like this in Italian almost. But a fine young man out of the Canadian Grand Prix. It's very sad to see the Benetton team work so hard all weekend and not score the points they deserve.
All right, thank you very much, John. We'll be back for some more of this exciting Formula One competition from the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve after this commercial message.
This ESPN Formula One technical report is brought to you by USF&G Financial Services, asset management tools for a brave new world.
A little bit of old biplane technology has entered Formula One. The Benetton Ford team, they were the first people to put these support wires from the chassis to the end of the wing. The reason for this is that these wings are so large they develop some 300 pounds of downforce at over 160 miles an hour, and the end of this wing would actually drag on the surface of the road. So it's holding up the end of the wing, but they have found in later testing that where they place the connector to the chassis can actually have an effect on handling. So biplane technology in the fast world of Formula One.
Okay, we're going to go back a couple of laps now to let you see a little bit of Alphonse and Gaston at work. The team McLaren members here. Alain Prost pulls over and lets Ayrton Senna go by for the lead. Now, Nigel Roebuck, you have your ideas as to why this took place.
Well, I was told this morning that the fuel consumption on Prost's car was, for some reason, slightly higher than that on Senna's. Prost was actually very depressed about the fuel situation this afternoon. And I feel he's just being Prost. He's boxing clever. Well, this race 3 years ago, I remember Prost and Rosberg were in exactly the same situation. McLaren teammates with a fuel consumption problem. Rosberg passed Prost at one stage. Rosberg was in trouble the last few laps of the race. Prost wasn't.
Well, that's interesting. Prost's car has been giving trouble here. It's interesting. They had pop-off valve problems with the car. It kept popping open. So they brought the car to the pits and changed the pop-off valves with the one on Senna's car, which had not given any trouble at all. And in Prost's car, the pop-off valve opened prematurely again, leading Ron Dennis, the McLaren team manager, to feel that it was an engine environment problem rather than the valve itself or the engine. So these are very, very temperamental power plants in these cars. So right now, the Brazilian Ayrton Senna out in front, on his way perhaps to a second Grand Prix victory of the year, and Alain Prost lies second, almost 2 seconds behind, over a second and a half behind at this point, which is the widest interval between the two lead cars we've seen all race long. And Ayrton Senna's 8th lap time of 1:26.5 continues to stand as the fastest lap of the race. So Senna may be leading, but he's not speeding up.
No, that's right.
We checked on
Berger. Berger has pulled off, I think. 4th place.
It's interesting that the tempo is so slow, in a sense, by Formula One standards, that these cars would be experiencing mechanical problems. If it was a short race, it'd be an all-out thing. Now, there's the AGS car. Philippe Strepp he's doing a pretty good job. He's in 8th place at this point. And there is Gerhard Berger starting the long walk back home, this car on the grass. So 2 of the contending teams have lost one of their cars, Benetton and Ferrari. I guess the papal blessing that the Ferraris got the other day from His Holiness is not paying off. I wonder if the smoke out of that car is white or black. Traffic in the turn here. Big crowd today, Nigel.
Very big. It's the biggest crowd I've ever seen here, I think.
I have a new promoter here, an American, Jack Long, who's rolled up his sleeves along with the Molson Brewery and has done a great job. And here's the yellow flag.
Yellow flag warning the drivers of something or other. It may be warning them of Berger's car off the road.
It's interesting, the flags in Formula One racing are so different than they are in the U.S. racing. For example, a red flag can only be given from the start-finish line stand, but a black flag in the corner means the same thing.
Yes, that's right.
I've never been able to figure that out.
No, nor I.
And here we have a pass. Michael Mansell.
Yes.
Oh, and almost takes Nelson Piquet's front ring with him.
Yes.
It would have been sort of poetic justice had that happened.
Yes. Half of the crew.
Right. Well, I think this is the 5th round this year, Nigel, and it's almost an easy, comfortable day. Nobody's sitting on the edge of their seats. We can't expect anybody to run out of gas until the last 15 minutes of our show, can we?
No. Last 10 minutes, probably.
10 minutes.
Yes.
Here's Alain Prost now, coming up behind one of the marches.
Yes, coming up behind Maurizio Gugelmin.
That's Ayrton Senna's former roommate, close friend, and some say protege.
Yes.
He's from Brazil. Okay, it's now a little close going. Gugelmin moves over to let him by, and we'll be back for more of the Grand Prix after this commercial pause. to warm up for the race, the crews built some rafts and raced them across the Olympic Basin on Thursday. They used the drums the wheels are shipped in, and there's the Lotus, an outhouse entered by Team Lotus that fell over right at the start and sank right after launching. It was they put all kinds of things on these drums, and you can see, and here they touched the other side, and when it was all over, the Tyrrell team members were the big winners of this magnificent aquatic sporting exercise, the pit crews and so forth. There, their fellows cheering them on. It was a great, somebody said that one of the teams cheated. One of the teams put the bodywork of the car on top of the ramp. And there's the winning Tyrrell team being welcomed to the other side. A little bit of the fun that the pit crews have here at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve before the racing got underway. Okay, back when the Canadian Grand Prix racing was held a long time ago, Nigel Mansell won the last one here in 1986. Al Barretto in 85, as you can see, Piquet was the 84 winner. Arnoux in 83, and Piquet again in 82, and Jacques Lafitte in 1981. The Canadian Grand Prix has been held at 3 circuits. This one at the Circuit Mont-Tremblant near Saint-Jovine, and it had its first outing at the Mosport circuit outside of Toronto. Back on the track now, Ayrton Senna now has a 4-second lead over Alain Prost. I wonder if he's misbehaving by going so fast.
I don't think he's going so fast, Chris. He has set a new fastest lap quite recently, 3 laps ago, but it's barely any quicker than his fastest lap very early in the race. So I'm quite sure it's Prost who's being conservative rather than Senna who's going very fast.
Well, Senna's fastest lap came on the 22nd turn here, a minute 26.5. Not too much faster than his last one, and certainly a lot slower than the car is capable of, I'm sure, as evidenced by his 121 qualifying round. But he must be getting some good news from his readouts on the dash. This sport has become so high-tech that all the drivers have a readout on the dash to tell them how many laps of fuel they have left in the car. Not gallons or whether the tank is a quarter full or so forth, but the average is figured out. And unfortunately, some of these calculations aren't always quite precise. Berger had a problem last time out, didn't he?
Yes, he did. And the most extreme example was in Adelaide, Australia, 1986. Alain Prost won the World Championship at that race, won the race too. For the last 4 races, when he was going flat out, his fuel gauge was telling him he had a minus amount of fuel. So they can't be relied upon completely.
Yeah, that's called running on the fumes. Now, there's some debris on the track of some sort, and it just went under Alain Prost's car. We hope it doesn't damage it. That's Prost there, looking calm and cool, and apparently none the worse for having run over whatever that was.
That's Tarquini's Coloni behind him. What the problem was with that car? Or...
One of the newcomers to the sport here. And we've gotten the official report on what it was that sent Alessandro Nannini to the sidelines early. It was a fuel pressure problem. He diagnosed it as a fuel pump, and it could well have been that. When you don't have the pressure to send the fuel to the engine is a no-go.
I see we have a repeat of Mexico here.
Yeah.
Chris, we have the 2 Arrows drivers scrapping together, Cheever and Warwick. And Senna is threading his way between them. Senna, you will notice, takes much bigger chances lapping traffic than Prost does.
Prost is, among other things, is patient. He's a very smart driver. There's no reason for hurrying. I'm surprised Warwick is doing as well as he is after that bouncing and jouncing he took yesterday in that ride. He could line up a liniment spot, but he said his back really bothers him today.
Yes.
In fact, he didn't make up his mind to drive until the very last moment. There's our leader, Senna. You can tell by that bright yellow helmet. The 2 Arrows are 1 lap down. The Arrows have not been complaining too much about their fuel mileage. They may well be around and in a prominent position when the checkered flag waves.
They may be. In the 4 races earlier this season, they were in extremely good shape on fuel. In fact, too good shape, really. They were finishing with too much fuel, which means that they weren't using as much horsepower as they could have done. But I talked to Cheever this morning, and he wasn't too optimistic today. He reckoned it would be a coast and collect day.
That's interesting. You know, race drivers in the United States for so many years had a reputation of being undisciplined. Here we have seen great discipline being shown on the track. Let's go down now to pit road and John Visignano with an interesting report.
Well, the shot you're looking at is the window of the motorhome where Ferrari has camped here, and inside that window is Gerhard Berger. We tried to stop him in the pit lane. He said, wait a moment until I have to debriefing with my engineer. He did tell me that it was an engine problem that did put him out. At first they thought it could have been the gearbox, but it has been an engine problem. He is going over the exact reason with his engineer right now, and we will have an interview with Gerhard as soon as he's ready to talk to us. Chris, I hate to say it, but 2 of my pick 6, they're out of here on their way to Detroit.
Oh, look at this. Here we have one of the Williams cars. It's Nigel Mansell smoking and pulling off to the side of the track. And something's going on up in the lead there. Alain Prost is close within 1.2 seconds of Ayrton Senna. I wonder if Senna's being slowed down by the pit.
I don't think so. I think Senna perhaps for once had a little more trouble with traffic than he usually encounters, and maybe Prost had slightly the better of the brake. Well, it's sad for Mansell because in fact once he'd got past Piquet, he'd pull well clear of him. So it's a shame that he's still searching for his first point of the year.
I'm glad that there's no wagering allowed here in Canada, because the second of my pick 6 choices was off to the side, and John Bizignano has lost 2. How are your pick 6?
Well, I'm looking good if anything happens to Senna, because my first 2 were Prost and Boots.
Okay, and here comes the all-conquering McLaren Alain Prost. More of the Canadian Grand Prix after these commercial pauses. Arena football, the 50-yard indoor war is back on ESPN. The scoring is fast and furious. Fewer men on a smaller field make the action twice as exciting as any other football game. ESPN brings you exclusive live coverage of 12 regular season games, 2 playoff games, and the league championship Arena Bowl. 6 regional teams are lined up for America's hottest new game. See it all on ESPN. Look at this. Philippe Streff in a normally aspirated Ford engine AGS is putting the pressure on world driving champion Nelson Piquet in a turbocharged Lotus Honda. Now, pretty soon, we're approaching the halfway mark, Nigel. Pretty soon, these normally aspirated cars are going to be quite light. They should be able to show some more maneuverability and some greater speed.
That's true.
And at least you're on the brake.
Yes. And potentially they're better. There's so many slow corners here. They're potentially better through the slow corners anyway because of their better throttle response. So if you're up with the game in the late stages, you know, a normally aspirated car is what you would want to have.
Look at this, side by side in the corner. This is pretty good racing here. Oh, got in line just right.
Anu and Warwick.
You know, it's interesting. They talk about all of the high-tech capability, advanced design, and how sophisticated these cars are. Talking to some engineers, whoa, and Gabriele Tarquini does a whirly gig, but gets back going okay. How advanced design these cars are, but the coefficient of drag on an American passenger car, a good American passenger car, Ford or Chevy, is 0.3. Now look at this. There's it locking up, and Gabriele, he hit one of the Ligiers. Now
that's Warwick's arrow.
That's in the hairpin there with the slowest turn on the course, which meant that they all got through without doing anything more than bruising their personality. Getting back to what I was saying about the coefficient of drag, or the ability of a car to get through the air from an aerodynamic standpoint of an American or any good passenger car is 0.3. The coefficient of drag of a Formula One car with those big wide tires out front is 1.5. So a Formula One car, despite its money and technology, is 5 times less efficient than an American passenger car in the air. Now, an American passenger car, once it starts moving, raises up on the suspension. But the difference is a Formula One car, once it gets moving, has a ton of downforce pressing it to the track. I found that to be really interesting.
Yes.
5 times less efficient than the car you went to work in Friday morning.
Yes.
Yeah, this is a good battle here. Philippe Streff and miles from Piquet. Want to bet he gets him?
He should get him, and Andrea de Cesaris is right behind.
Well, that's enough to make anybody move.
Which is absolutely, it's an incentive for Strat to get as far away as possible.
Andrea de Cesaris in the morning warm-up, he ran into Philippe Ayot, knocked his right front wing off, and then before the session was over, spun off in this car into a gravel pit and stopped about 10 inches short of a tire wall. He had the nickname Andrea de Crasheris, and he just can't quite seem to shake it. And here we have a pit stop for, it looks like Eddie Cheever. And we'll certainly get a report on that, I would gather, from John Bisignano. Derek Warwick would be the one I would think would make a pit stop. No limit on the number of men in Formula One racing that can work on a car in the pits, as is the case in both IndyCar and stock car racing in the United States. You can have the whole family surround the car here if you wish.
And that's Alboreto pulling on.
The second Ferrari bites the dust. How about that? Oh, papal blessing or not. What color was that smoke?
Smoke was white, Chris.
Smoke is white, okay. So both Ferraris are out of the competition. And let's see now. Senna and Prost turbo cars. Boutsen, a normally aspirated car. Piquet a turbo. Struff normally aspirated. De Cesaris normally aspirated. There's not too many turbos left.
Not too many at all.
Well, if the turbos start to founder, Terry Boutsen in the Benetton is the heir apparent. That's a beautiful shot of the button hook turn from the Goodyear blimp around this island. Okay. We talked prior to the race with Ayrton Senna about several things. Oh, here's a report. Let's go to John Bisignano in the pit.
Thank you, Chris. Very slowly, the Cannon Williams pulled in here. Its driver, Riccardo Patrese, saying, fellas, take off the engine cover. I don't want to get out of the car yet, but he certainly, yes, he is getting out of the car. Steering wheel off. You have to take that steering wheel off to actually remove the driver. These cockpits are so small. What a horrible season so far for this hard-working Cannon Williams crew. They have not had any success on track whatsoever. Qualifying has been a bit dismal. Riccardo Patrese out of this race. The Ferraris are having trouble. No one could have predicted so far these DNFs in Canada. Chris, we'll try and get the interviews as soon as the debriefings are over.
All right, thank you very much, John. You know, out of the race so far, 2 Ferraris, 2 Williams contenders, 1 Benetton, and 1 Tyrrell, among others. So that's 6 cars in this race that's being run at a rather leisurely pace. It's surprising, frankly. All right, here we have Ayrton Senna, the leader, cruising around. He's 4 seconds ahead of his teammate Alain Prost. Before the race, we talked to Ayrton Senna and asked him how concerned he was about fuel mileage.
Fuel always determines the amount of power you can use and, of course, the pace you can go during the Grand Prix. So, as it is a high consumption, fuel consumption track, it will be our biggest determining factor for the speed during the race. But it will be the same for everybody. It will be just better for us race cars because they will come closer, I think, to the turbos, and it should be interesting.
Okay, Ayrton Senna, the tremendously fast qualifier out in front in one of the Tyrrell cars, and here is Terry Boutsen, who now lies in 3rd place, some 15 seconds behind the leader. The McLarens, as they have ridden all year long, 1 and 2, we are past the halfway mark at this point now. And this is what some people come to Formula One races for. We have to leave these lovely ladies to sell some product.
We are with a not-so-happy Gerhard Berger, the #1 driver for Ferrari. Gerhard, what went wrong? We know it was an engine problem. Do you know exactly what it was?
No, I don't know exactly, but it seems to be electric problems.
Let me ask you, everyone here with the turbo cars, they are worried about the fuel situation. Did you have enough fuel on board to run as hard as you wanted to?
No.
So you could not have been flat out throughout the race. Do you think that's true for the McLarens and some of the other competition?
I had to slow down after 5 laps and had to slow down again, and I must slow down again.
So it's a bit of a frustrating way to run a race.
For the next race.
In Detroit. Good luck there, Gerhard. Both Ferraris out of the Canadian Grand Prix. A sad day for the boys from Maranello. Back to you, Chris.
All right, thank you very much, John. I wondered what Berger's impressions of the McLaren team is at this point now. Prost has moved a second closer to Ayrton Senna, and they're coming up on their 38th lap of the 69-lap race, 3.018 seconds. And Prost has now set the fastest lap on the 31st tour.
Yes.
He did a 1:25.706. You know, that's marginally faster than Senna's fastest lap.
Yes,
they're not
right.
really doing anything in leaps and bounds here. They're not close.
They're not truly hurrying, no.
Well, Ayrton Senna, Alain Prost, Terry Boutsen, Nelson Piquet, Philippe Struff, Andrea De Cesaris, Ivan Capelli, Stefano Modena, Philippe Alliot, and Jonathan Palmer make up the top 10 here on the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. And here's one driver, really, the signals I learned in driving school, in high school, he was using there. Such courtesies we're seeing today. Benetton car, you like those colors. We've got one of those Benetton stores in my hometown, and every month or so they change the colors. The Italians really love their bright colorwork. Boutsen is about 14 seconds behind Prost. No chance of overhauling him, I don't think, if it continues on this way, but
if the McLaren should have a problem, Chris, in fact, Boutsen is really the only one who's within striking distance of them at all.
Yeah, Nelson Piquet is almost a half a minute behind Boutsen. And here, number 25, René Arnoux, at 39 years old, the senior citizen of the Formula One circuit, coming in for, of all things, tires. Now, these cars have a reputation of being just sort of ill-prepared, ill-designed, and ill-everything else. They haven't run it now. At this slow pace, they're wearing out tires. Okay, now let's go once again to the pit lane and our colleague, John Bisignano.
Thank you, Chris. The only American in the Canadian Grand Prix out of this event. Eddie, what took you out of the Canadian race?
Right from the first two laps, I had a problem with the throttle linkage. And I think that one of the butterflies was staying open all the time, so it was almost impossible to drive. And in the end, the spring finally broke.
Does that mean that the throttle is stuck open then?
No, it's a complicated system to prime the turbo system up, and half of the system wasn't working.
Actually, Eddie, you had virtually a trouble-free qualifying. You qualified very well in the USF&G Aeros. What about Detroit? You did very well there when you came in substituting for Patrick Tambay a few years ago. You must be looking forward. You were running third there last year.
I think the USF&G Aeros this year won't do good. We'll do well at Detroit. I hope we can repeat what we did last year. Today I'm extremely disappointed the way things went, and right now I'm not even thinking about Detroit, but I'm trying to understand why we had these problems. Today could have been a good race for us.
As I said, a disappointed American here in the pits in Canada, and his teammate Derek Warwick is still doing well just to be in this Canadian race. Back to you, Chris.
All right, thank you very much, John. You know, it's interesting that these poor guys go to so much work in preparation. If you can watch a car being ready for a Grand Prix, you'd understand how much work is involved. You just don't push them out of the truck on the track and run them. Sometimes there are as many as 20 pit stops made during the 4 practice and qualifying rounds for minor adjustments on wings, on tire pressures, on gear ratio, on turbo settings, suspension geometry is changed. It's an endless job to get a car just right for the track. Then to have some little thing go wrong, it must be very difficult for the drivers to understand and swallow. But the Team McLaren, they seem to really have their act together. I've never seen a team so proficient and so professional as this team is here. And here these drivers are out there running around. Prost's fastest lap, 1:25.406, on the 38th time around. It's quite slow by the qualifying standards and for the capability of the car. So these guys are strict disciplinarians. You know, years ago when American racing drivers were invited to Le Mans, they said they didn't want to go because it wasn't a race. So you had to baby a car for 24 hours. You couldn't get out there and go and blow, as some of them would say. And what we've seen here is pretty much the same thing. It may be a mini Le Mans. You've just got to baby your car to get it to the end.
You have.
You can't really race it to the end today.
You have. Particularly, this circuit particularly is something of an economy drive, I'm afraid. But it's interesting, Prost is actually on a clear track now. Prost is taking time from Senna. When they get traffic, it's the other way around. Senna takes more chances, gets away with them, pulls it out again.
Well, Senna's a lot younger than Prost, and I don't believe Senna's spent any time in the hospital yet, has he, Nigel?
No.
That makes a big difference.
Not serious time, no.
Well, there he is in the yellow helmet, Ayrton Senna. You know, it's interesting. Senna and Piquet, the two Brazilian drivers, don't race under their real name. They both use their mother's maiden name. Senna's real name is Ayrton Senna da Silva, and Nelson Piquet is Nelson Sayuto Mayor. His mother's name is Piquet. It's just an interesting coincidence that these two drivers, both from Brazil, have chosen to race under names that aren't really their own.
Yes.
There's the hairpin, the slowest turn on the track, and that's Alain Prost making the curve. We'll be back after this. Okay, back at the Canadian Grand Prix at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve here in the middle of the St. Lawrence Seaway on the outskirts of Canada's second largest city, Montreal, with Ayrton Senna of Brazil leading his teammate Alain Prost of France, Terry Boutsen, and let's see the highlights of this competition. It started about an hour ago. Here's the start, a standing start. On your left, pole sitter Ayrton Senna. On your right, his teammate Alain Prost. Senna moves to the left to set up for the first bend, and the traffic gets underway. A little shuttle eliminated Julian Bailey, knocked the front and rear wings off his car. And here, on the 19th lap, history was made. It's the first pass of the year by a running leader of another car in Formula One racing. This will be a trivia question in the years to come. And here, Michele Alboreto lying fourth, the second of the Ferrari drivers to go out of the competition, despite the cars having been blessed by the Pope less than 10 days ago. Leader has led 18 of 37 laps. There's been one lead change. Only Prost and Senna have been in the lead, and there are 10 drivers on the lead lap, and that was just a few minutes ago. Times have changed here. There are actually 5 drivers on the lead lap now. Ivan Capelli in 6th place has fallen 1 lap behind. Here's Capelli right here. Okay. Over the years, there have been 19 Canadian Grand Prix. 8 at Toronto, or 8 at Mosport beginning in 1967, alternating with Mount Tremblant, where they had 2 races starting in 1968. But 8 here at Montreal beginning in 1978. So Canada has had 3 circuits that have hosted the Canadian Grand Prix. Sweet looking bodywork on that car, Nigel.
Yes, very much so. Very much so. It's a very quick car. We haven't seen the best of it. I'm afraid that at the moment a little underdeveloped, which the team admits, but the potential is definitely there.
Here's that hairpin turn. It's much like the turn on an American oval racetrack. And here's Alain Prost. Right now, he is 4.353 seconds behind Ayrton Senna. It's amazing how the interval changes when Senna gets into traffic. Senna breezes through traffic, it opens up a big lead, and then when they both have a clear track, Prost closes up 2 seconds on it.
We've seen that at virtually every race this year, Chris, that on a clear track, Prost gains. On a track full of traffic, it's the other way around. Senna just goes for it and hopes for the best. Prost keeps back.
It's amazing in the consistency they show. 37 gear changes a lap. You think the palm of their right hand would be quite sore when the competition's over.
It is. I mean, I saw a lot of blistered hands yesterday before after 2 days of practice before the race started.
But you have to be so consistent. Putting the car in the same place at every turn.
Yes.
15 turns here, 37 gear changes, severe brake applications, traffic, debris on the track. It's remarkable the job these drivers do.
Yeah, it is.
And here we have Alain Prost in 2nd place, 3.934 seconds behind. Our computer tells me that Formula One has, without question, the best timing and scoring system of any worldwide series. Longines, with its timing device, and Olivetti with his computers, they've refined it and elaborated on it to where almost any question you have can be answered. They have metal strips across the track at the start-finish line and at the entry and exit of the pits. And each car has a little transponder on it about the size of a package of cigarettes that sends out its own private radio signal. When it crosses one of these taped lines, it's picked up by the computer and it's digested immediately. And you find out where the car is every lap and how many seconds behind the car in front of it is. It's an announcer's delight, really.
These two, Chris, Capelli and Modena, two young Italians, and they're scrapping over 6th place, so there's a lot at stake here, a championship point. Neither of them has scored a point at all this year, so there's something to settle here.
Capelli's my kind of guy. He's a young guy. He's got a great sense of humor. At one of the races, he showed up with his arm in a cast, and his team manager almost had a heart attack. He was just a gag. He wanted to have some fun with him over in Italy, and he kept them guessing for about half a day, and Stefan Johansson came up and said that he would be willing to tear up his contract and drive with him, and the poor guys are going nuts. When it came time to practice, Capelli ripped off his cast, put on his helmet, got in the car, and off he went. 46 of 69 laps complete, and the McLarens are 1 and 2. Come on, Nigel, when are they going to run out of fuel?
I would be surprised if either of them did, Chris. They haven't had any pressure on them at all. The Ferraris were there only for the first 4 or 5 laps, and since then they've been able to dictate their own pace. I'm sure they're okay. All
right, now listen, Nigel, here you just said that. Last time around, Alain Prost did a 125.045 for the fastest lap of the race. He's feeling his outs now. He doesn't know if he has enough gas. He wants to win.
I'm sure that's right. That's right, but catching center and passing it will be not.
There's a beautiful look at the racetrack from the top. This is the Ile Notre Dame, a man-made island for Expo 67, on which the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve rests. We'll be back for more of the Canadian Grand Prix after these messages.
Well, welcome back to this Canadian Grand Prix being covered by ESPN. Nigel, you're such a character. Listen, why are you in such a good mood? I mean, unfortunately, you're a little bit getting used to being a DNF instead of a podium man this year.
Yeah, you've got to have a sense of humor, and if I could change engines as quick as I change hats, I'd be pretty good.
The commercial side of this sport hasn't affected you in any way whatsoever, has it, Nigel?
No, absolutely not. We've got to keep the sponsors happy as much as we can. We're going reasonably well. At least we're in the points, but you know, we've got a lot of problems this year, to be fair.
Chris Economaki is up in the booth, and he has a question. I'll try and translate Chris. You know, he's difficult to understand, but we'll try and get it right.
Well, ask Nigel if he's happy about the Renault announcement coming to Williams, and will he be with the team next year?
Nigel, Chris Economaki has said that there are some rumors about you maybe moving away from Williams next year, and that you may have the Renault engine in the back of your chassis. Would you like to comment on both those subjects?
Obviously, I think the team's done a good decision going to Renault. They were winning in Formula 1 some years back, and coming back into Formula 1, they'll only be doing one thing, and that's, you know, get the engines quick enough to win. So from the team's point of view, to have an exclusive contract with a major manufacturer is nothing short of very, very good. From my own point of view, I'm just biding my time, enjoying my golf, and a little bit of racing here and there.
And a lot of golf. Some rounds of golf before Detroit.
Yeah, absolutely. I should go and practice my golf and hopefully have a better weekend in Detroit.
Nigel Mansell looking forward to the walls of Detroit. Back to you.
Right, and no answer as whether he'll be on the same team next year. Get a chuckle out of that. All right, the interval now. Prost has cut the interval to less than 3 seconds with less than 20 laps to go in this competition. 5 drivers on the lead lap. Senna, Prost, Terry Boutsen, Nelson Piquet, and Andrea De Cesaris. 1 lap down. Ivan Capelli, Stefano Modena, Philippe Alliot, Jonathan Palmer, Derek Ward, Gabriel Tarquini, Mauricio Gugelmin, Satoru Nakajima, Piercarlo Ginzani, and Luis Perez Sala, as the McLaren Hondas continue to set the 1-2 pace here in Canada, as they have done in Brazil, in San Marino, in Monte Carlo, and in Mexico.
And probably for the rest of the season. I must say, this was one race when I thought we really might see a challenge from McLaren.
know, the interesting thing about it, though, to me, Nigel, is that they're not for sale. You know, the old American expression, they build a better mousetrap and the world will beat a path to your door. And they've built a better mousetrap. There's no two ways about that, and nobody can buy one.
Nobody can buy one.
I think the most important thing on the horizon for Team McLaren applies to the United States, where this morning Ron Dennis was asking me about Indianapolis car racing. I think their interest is becoming more and more intense there.
I think their interest is more than intense. I feel certain they will be there within a couple of years.
And it looks like there's some spectators gathering in the McLaren pits down there. John Bizignano, can you give us an indication of what the attraction is?
Well, the McLaren boys like to have a little bit of drama, of course. All the TV crews are here, but we just talked to the tire manager, and he said they are not planning or expecting. They are just prepared, ready to go.
Can you look over at those computers and tell me if that Japanese computer man is smiling or frowning as to what he's finding out the car is doing on the fuel? Hard to tell, huh?
At the moment, I would say he looks concerned.
Does he? Well, you know, this morning in the Lotus pit, and maybe you can get our cameraman over there, John, to show us that what's hanging from the ceiling of the Lotus garage. I thought it was quite interesting. I won't tip my hand. Tell me if you can give us a picture of that rather unique decoration in the Lotus garage next door there.
We'll try and get it for you, Chris.
Here we have close going, the Philippe Ayot in the Lola, measuring.
Philippe Alliot coming up on Stefano Modena, about to argue over 7th place. Capelli now appears to have got clear of Modena and is established in 6th.
Alliot had a little rub, as I said earlier, this morning in the morning warm-up, and Randy Chesner has ran into the left front corner of his car, knocked the wing off, the right front corner of his car, knocked the wing off. And Alliot really had his bones jarred in a phenomenally fast crash in Mexico 2 weeks ago, but seems to be perfectly okay, none the worse for the wear, and hasn't lost his appetite for going fast. Here we have Ayrton Senna twisting and weaving his way around the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. We'll be back with more of the Canadian Grand Prix after this. Okay, and if you're interested in IndyCar racing on Sunday, June 19th, live from Portland, Oregon, it's going to be the Budweiser G.I. Joe's 200 with all the stars of the Indy 500, Rick Mears and those who chased him for 200 laps at the Indianapolis 500. June 19th, 5 p.m. Eastern on ESPN, Sunday, June the 19th. Okay, and now let's see what we are. There it is, inside the Lotus garage, the Hangman's Noose. It was put up this morning for the Japanese Honda engine men. Both the Honda engines failed in Mexico, and this is what they promised them if they failed here today. And there was some funny laughs this morning when that was put up there. It's still there, though, and both cars are on the track.
Running, yes.
Right. Under the Campari Bridge, world champion Nelson Piquet nursing his fuel supply. 53 of 69 laps in the books here. And Ayrton Senna leads his team at Alain Prost by just a tick of the watch over 3 seconds. About 15 laps to go, Nigel.
Yep, about 15 laps to go.
Just figuring out who's going to run dry first.
I'd be surprised if either of them ran dry, I must say.
Really?
As I say, they've had the whole afternoon without pressure, and I'm sure they have it figured out. But if I was going to take a bet, I would certainly bet that Prost will not run out, because nobody figures it better.
John Bizignano said that the computer man down there in the McLaren pit looked concerned. Derek Warwick being passed by leader Ayrton Senna. A little smoke out of one of the cars there. Senna's a very smooth chauffeur. It'd be interesting to see if McLaren should come to Indianapolis, whether Senna would come along with the team or they would use other drivers. We asked Ron Dennis that in Imola, and he said they'd use anybody that's capable of winning. He didn't care what country they came from, even from Timbuktu. Coming up on Piercarlo Cinzani in the Zach Speed, it's leader Ayrton Senna. smoothly driving that car, using all the racetrack, and perfectly behaving as they exit the hairpin. And around Cinzani now. Cinzani moves over and gives him plenty of room.
Now you see my point, Chris, that when he's lapping people, when he's going through traffic, Senna is extremely assertive. He's on the limit the whole time. He doesn't hang back. And usually that works for him. Prost says, yes, I was like that when I was 4 or 5 years younger. But now I think about the end of the race. I think about points. I don't take unnecessary chances.
I love your command of the language now. Extremely assertive. That's great. I've never heard that phrase. See, very aggressive. Extremely assertive, and that he is. Okay, he move out to set up for the corner in front of Derek Warwick. And Warwick, whatever aches and pains he had this morning are going to get worked out, if that helps at all. We recommended some liniment to him before the race got underway. There's a close-up of Alain Prost, flying second now. The interesting question that Prost would have put to him when it's all over is why it was he let Senna by on that 19th lap.
I'm quite certain because of what his gauge was telling him, and certainly the message his gauge was giving him this morning in the warm-up he didn't like particularly. So I wonder if the problem is still there, that his consumption is slightly higher than Senna's, and he's had to drive a more conservative race.
Well, now Senna has just set the fastest lap of the race on his 53rd trip around, 1:24.973, and it's really not by much.
No.
It's a 1:25.0 if you remember, so that's just a...
It does seem to...
tenth of a second.
It does seem to indicate, though, Chris, that Senna doesn't believe he has any fuel problem at all, or he wouldn't even be going as quickly as that. There's still 3 seconds of his pole time.
Yeah, that's right.
Relatively, it's not...
Look at the people there, Nigel, filling up the grandstands around this beautiful racetrack. One of the nice things about this circuit that very few other circuits have to offer, perhaps no other circuit, Argentina, is you can get here by subway. The Montreal subway system lets the people ride the subway right to the track. In fact, it's the dirt from the tunnels that the subway runs through that the track is made upon.
I came in by subway this morning, Chris.
Did you?
At 8 o'clock, and it was perfect. No problems at all.
You're a commuter. What did it cost?
$1.
Canadian dollar.
Canadian dollar.
About 82 cents U.S.
Yes.
There's Jerry Boutsen circling around there. If somebody were to ask you, what color that car was, quickly, what would you say? Multi-colored machine, right.
It's when they launched the car at the beginning of the year, they invited the journalists and photographers to throw pots of paint around. We were all given overalls to wear, and it just looks as though it's sort of landed on the car.
Okay, and here's while the race is on, some of the people in the lake in the infield are driving around oblivious to the competition. We'll be back. Sports Center tonight, live at 7 p.m. and at 11 p.m. Eastern. Host Chris Berman and Tim Brando at 7 o'clock, and Chris Berman and Bob Lay at 11 with the top stories. The NBA Finals, Game 3 at Pontiac, Michigan. Sports Center's Larry Burnett with a full report. And Sports Center is your source for all the latest in sport news. And here's Ayrton Senna putting a lap on Tatsuro Nakajima, the Japanese driver for Team Lotus. That's the second race in a row that the Hondas have been lapped by a Honda.
Yes, it is. It is. It must be very demoralizing for Piquet. This is exactly what happened to him at...
Particularly when they're taking it so easy.
Yes.
Of course, Nakajima's tiptoeing, too, to save fuel, I gather.
Yes.
And here we have Dr. Jonathan Palmer in the Tyrrell car. He's weaving a little bitty. And forcing Senna the long way around, and they come into that tough hairpin turn. They pass the stalled Williams car against the tires.
Senna, I'm sure, must feel he has it done now because Prost is 5 seconds behind. And I would imagine Prost will now leave it at that. Say, okay, 6 points will do.
At this point, as the Super says, there are only 3 cars on the lead lap. Senna, Prost, and Boutsen. Piquet having been lapped. The world champion is 1 lap down. business.
It is, and it's happened to him more than once.
That's true. I like this racetrack. Beautifully laid out. Roger Peart, the president of the CASC, or Canadian Auto Sports Club, designed this circuit a number of years ago, and is the clerk of the course here today. Let's go down to our colleague John Bisignano on pit road.
What you're looking at are the green stripes of the tricolore for Ferrari. These are the lines that a driver looks for when he comes into the pits and follows it right to the stopping area. But today, of course, these pits are empty. They're empty early. A little unusual for Ferrari in 1988 due to the fact that this is the first time this season that both cars have dropped out of the race. The garage doors are down. They've left one tire jack outside. We'll stick it underneath the door, but they're actually packed up and headed for the IndyCam race in Detroit. Ferrari not being terribly reliable in the past, but this year is the first time that both red cars from Ferrari have not been able to complete a Grand Prix. Back to you, Chris.
Thank you, John. You mentioned Detroit next week. On the bridge leading to the mainland here, coming in this morning, are 21 moving vans, nose to tail, over a quarter of a mile long, with these moving vans parked, that will gather up all the parts, pieces, cars, and spares tonight to take them to Detroit for the U.S. Grand Prix East next Sunday. And by 10 o'clock tonight, this whole place, with the exception of the signs, will be empty of any evidence of a Formula One competition. It's like a circus where it's knocked down right after the performance and go on to the next town for the big extravaganza.
Yeah, it was exactly the same in Mexico 2 weeks ago, Chris.
There we have our trucks over there. There are the vans. There's two of them. There's 21 of them in line, I counted on the way in this morning.
Do you remember we saw them in Mexico City? Just the same vans. They brought all the cars up here from there.
Okay, now John Bisignano is earning his keep today. Who do you have, John?
Yes, we are earning our keep. It's not via tire stops, but via drivers out of this race, unfortunately. Michele Alboreto, your team is packed up. They've deserted you here. Why did you drop out of the Canadian Grand Prix? What was your problem?
Both car engine problem. I think today is much more hot than yesterday. We missed something in the radiators, and also because we have a very lean map for the consumption, I think the temperature inside the engine is much more higher than yesterday, so we blow up both driver and the engines.
John, ask him what the engine settings to save mileage.
Michele, let me ask you a question. Were you okay as far as the fuel left in your car? Did you have enough fuel to run as hard as you wanted to run?
Running like I was around 27, 26.5 was the right rhythm to finish the race and to save a little bit fuel to try to catch the Benetton at the end of the race. But I think nothing to do with the McLarens for the moment.
Well, better luck in Detroit, Michele. Thank you very much. Back to you, Chris.
Okay, thank you, John. You know, some of these engine settings, I guess, are extreme lean edge to save gas, and I guess it's backfired in some instances here. That's a possibility there. In the meantime, Ayrton Senna is now 7 seconds ahead of Alain Prost. And I guess Prost must feel that he really has got to conserve to get to the checkered flag.
Yes, I think Prost is a wise man, Chris, and 6 points is not a disaster. He has a considerable lead, an 18-point lead over Senna in the World Championship, and he can afford to drop 3 to him today.
Well, you know, the winner of a Grand Prix race gets 9 points towards the championship. Second place, 6, third, 4, fourth, 3. Then it's 2 and 1 point. Only the top 6 finishers gain points. And you get that 6 points whether you're 1 second behind or 20 seconds behind, as long as you're in second place. And there's the signal to who would that be for? Alain Prost, I guess. The flag of France out there. And here we have Ayrton Senna out in front by almost 10 seconds now. We'll be back for more after this commercial. Our next Formula One coverage will emanate from the south of France. Round 6 in the World Driving Championship. Live coverage beginning at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time on Sunday, the 3rd of July, from the Circuit Paul Ricard in Le Castellet, almost inside of the Mediterranean Sea. This race kicks off ESPN's second Race Day America. Also include highlights and updates of the big weekend in motorsport. ESPN will televise all the remaining stops on the Formula One Tour. And there's a long look at the button hook, turns 1 and 2 for the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve here. And hugging the inside, getting closer and closer to the checkered flag. Okay, Ayrton Senna twists and weaves. John Bizignano, what have you for us?
Well, we have a pit sign for you, Chris. They just took the easy off the pit board of Ayrton Senna. They showed it to him for the last 3 laps. So Ron Dennis is definitely trying to slow his leading driver down. He has been shown the easy sign for the last 3 laps directly under the signal from Ron Dennis. Back to you, Chris.
All right, there you can see the McLaren pitmen. And now the pressure is really getting out here. Of course, what Dennis wants, he wants it all. He wants 1 and 2. 1 is not enough. He wants them both. And the interval now stands at 11.5 seconds with 5 laps to go. There's Alain Prost right there, the second place driver, 11.5 seconds behind Brazilian Ayrton Senna out in front. If he stays there, will win his second Grand Prix of the season.
Yes, I find it difficult to believe that Senna is ignoring warning messages from his own cockpit gauges. I understand why Ron Dennis is a little anxious because, as you say, he wants a 1-2, but I would think Senna has it under control.
Okay, let's go back to John Bizignano down in the McLaren pit area.
Well, actually, Ron Dennis down here, the owner of the McLaren International team, does not have as much under control as he would like. We have just found out that there are no readings coming back to the Epson computers relative to the readout in Alain Prost's car. Also, Prost, his gauge has gone on the blink. He does not know how much fuel is in the car. So for sure, right now, we're going back to driving by the seat of the pants when it comes to the number 1 McLaren.
Well, neither do we know how much fuel is in it either. No. You know, one of the problems with all this high-tech stuff is it's often not quite right. Some of these races, as you said earlier, Nigel, where it showed a minus amount in the tank. In other words, he was running on empty. So these people who pay so much money for all this high-tech stuff really have their fingers crossed to see how accurate it is. With fuel sloshing back and forth in the tank, the old fuel gauge just doesn't work. So what these cars have on them is a metering thing that reads the fuel that's gone to the engine and subtracts from how much it was started with. And that's supposed to tell you how much is left.
That's right.
We'll soon find out.
And it is absolutely vital when fuel is restricted, and it plays such a crucial part in the race.
So now Boutsen is 55, almost 56 seconds behind Alain Prost. So these 2 McLarens, despite their conservative drivers, have just overwhelmed the field once again. As we said at the top of the show, never before in the history of motorsport, even in the days of Mercedes-Benz dominance, has such clear-cut superiority been shown by a single-make automobile.
No.
Past the new pit area, beautiful pit complex.
McLaren's superiority really must be so dispiriting for these people. Anybody with a Lotus, I mean, they have a Honda engine, they have Goodyear tires, they have the world champion, and they're lapped. It must be, they really must be wondering what is going on.
Yeah, the
like
average
everyone else.
motorsporting outlook, race driving outlook in the United States has been, well, if he can do it, I can do it. And this is going to bother somebody when they can't. And here's Ayrton Senna, the leader. Still almost 12 seconds ahead now of Alain Prost. And somebody's smoking his way down the track right opposite the pit.
That's Ghinzani's Zaxby's.
Piercarlo Ghinzani smokes his way off the track on the grass, not far from our announce booth. And 1 less car on the racetrack. And through the smoke and fire, here comes Ayrton Senna with 2 circuits of the track to go. picked him to win, didn't you?
No, I didn't, I'm afraid. I picked Frost to win.
You picked Frost to win, huh? Well, let's hope that everybody that's out there finishes. They deserve to finish. 4 pounds worth of fuel being burned off every time a car goes around the track. That to me is interesting. Cars are lighter now than they've been all day long. How many times, Nigel, has a leader run out of fuel on the last lap?
A
few times.
A leader, I'm trying to remember, Chris, and I cannot.
When Senna won his first race in Portugal, somebody ran out in front of him on the last lap.
No, in Portugal, that was in the rain, Chris, when Senna led all the way. Senna himself, a couple of years ago, ran out several times near the end, but I don't think when he was ever leading. Yes, he did. He did at Imola. It happened to him when he was leading, but it wasn't the last lap.
Oh, the Brazilians are starting to warm up their flags now. They're getting their cheers ready. They do school cheering, and here's one of the cars running out of gas.
That's Alliot. Philippe Alliot.
Philippe Alliot is pulled off to the side, the first of the fuel victims today. And Ayrton Senna on his final lap. Let's see how he does here. You don't have the white flag signifying 1 lap to go in international racing. It means something else. The drivers are not given any formal signal that they're entering their last lap. And we'll see our Brazilian friends with their flags start to give a big cheer here. About 2 miles to go for victory in the Canadian Grand Prix for Ayrton Senna. Quite slowly, I would think. Be interested to see what the interval is at the end. With 1 lap to go, it was 11 seconds. And Imola, the leader, slowed way down on the final lap. And the second-place driver closed right up on him.
That's right. It was these two, of course, Chris. It was Senna allowing Prost to come back in.
And the starter, official flagman here, waiting with the checkered gonfalon. Here's the hairpin, half a track to go now. Less than half a track to go to the checkered flag. Patiently. Round and round.
Using very little of the road.
Looks like they're going to make it okay. Here's his hand up, signifying victory. He's at the start-finish line. There's the display of the flag, and Ayrton Senna has won again. And he pulls over and stops the car. There's the McLaren team members congratulating one another on yet another victory. Senna's 8th Grand Prix victory in 67 starts, and he's pulled over on the grass here. These cars have to be weighed now. And with all the fuel out, even 4 ounces underweight will disqualify his victory if the car is too light on the scale. So that's why the standings are always shown as unofficial until the post-race weigh-in is made. Off the arrows, number 17, Derek Warwick, pulling over quickly after taking the checkered flag.
That's been a brave afternoon, I think,
yes,
for him.
Very, very true. And there's our winner in a very unceremonious place to stop the car. The cool-off lap, as it's called. The fans usually get a chance to cheer the driver around. In Detroit, Senna, for 2 years, has stopped to pick up a Brazilian flag and carry to the victory podium. He's got his helmet off. He got a good look at his close prop back. And there are the Brazilian flags being held high for Ayrton Senna, the winner of the 1988 Canadian Grand Prix at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, his 8th career victory. We'll be back for more of the Canadian Grand Prix after these commercials. Ayrton Senna walking down in this coterie of photographers in the Brazil sound up there. It's a happy day for the Brazilians, you know. Canada is quite a mix of ethnic groups. There are many South Americans living here in Montreal as well as Toronto, and you find many more supporters of Latino drivers than you would find in practically any United States city except Los Angeles or New York. Derek Warwick limping by our announce booth here. How about this? DeMarge giving a rider
Capelli bringing
home.
De Cesaris back.
Yes.
And De Cesaris, I think, must have...
And right in front of our announce booth, cars are being pushed back into the pit area here. So the finish was Ayrton Senna, Alain Prost, Terry Boutsen was third, Nelson Piquet fourth, Ivan Capelli fifth, and Jonathan Palmer sixth. And let's get down to John Bizignano on pit road.
Thank you, Chris. We're with the man who has engineered the rebirth of the McLaren spirit and team into McLaren International, Ron Dennis. What does it feel like to totally dominate the F1 world, Ron Dennis?
Well, we won the first 5 races, but there's another 11 to go, so I think domination's a pretty big word.
It's the only word that can be described for your organization, Ron. I mean, the first 5 races, dominating last season also. How'd you put it together?
It's just a team, top to bottom. I mean, it'd be very wrong of me to take the credit from a good design group and a good team of guys. And we all come to every race and try and win it. And when we're successful, I think it's only fair that everybody gets the credit because it's very much a team.
Your team is some 160 people strong now in the factory. Ferrari was criticized for having too many people, not being able to react quick enough for decisions that needed to be made. Are you finding that a problem from your 90-day personnel group?
No, it's the main reason we're at such a high staff level at the moment is because we're heavily into 1989 and the normally aspirated program. We hope to announce that car in the next few weeks. And, it just takes a lot of people to run two intense programs.
RD, congratulations. Best of luck in Detroit.
Thank you very much.
Back to you, Chris. A very happy Ron Dennis.
And Ayrton Senna bows his head as the Hino Nacional, the Brazilian national anthem, is played. On his left, in the dark blue coveralls, third place Terry Boutsen of Belgium. And on his right, the Professor Alain Prost of France, a 31-time winner, a 2-time world driving champion. And there he is holding the trophy for the Grand Prix Molson of Canada high above his head. Now let's talk about who was the picker. Nigel Roebuck, you picked Prost, Boutsen, Senna, Alberto, Streff, and Palmer for a total of 20 points. 4 of your picks finished in the points. Not bad. John Bizignano, you picked Senna to win, and he won. But none of your other picks scored, so you have 9 points. And old Chris Economaki here picked Nannini to win. I picked Boutsen, he got 4, Prost 6. I wound up with 11 points with Palmer in there for 5th place. So, Nigel Roebuck, the new man on the team, you get first prize. Nigel, you can buy the drinks tonight.
Well, thank you, Christopher.
Okay, our pick 6 here. And there are the drivers with the champagnes. And look at that. Alain Prost is getting a shampoo from winner Ayrton Senna. Now this... such a waste of good champagne there. Fine imported Moet de Chandon champagne. Well, the drivers are... suddenly they become children again.
Well, they don't drink it, Chris. That's the problem, I think. Because they don't drink anything, they feel free to waste it, and they don't realize how much other people might appreciate it.
About 25 or 30 countries have television announcers here covering the race. It's called the World Feed, and here we see those 2 McLarens. This is the pass for the lead back on the 18th lap, and of course the question will be to Alain Prost, why did he play Alphonse and allow Gaston to go by? We'll know the answer, hopefully, before we get off the air. So the winner again, Ayrton Senna of Brazil, Alain Prost of France second, 5.934 seconds behind. That's interesting. Okay, once again, it's John Bizignano on pit road.
I'm with Dr. Jonathan Palmer, who scored 1 point here this afternoon. You look a bit knackered. How hard was it out there, Jonathan?
Well, I think it was about the hardest race I've ever done. Not because of the car or the track or anything else, but because I had a problem in that my drink bottle came loose on the first lap, literally, and I was about to pit and get them to sort it out. It was underneath my feet. It was rattling around against my feet. And I spent the whole race trying to manipulate the bottle around with my left foot in between each corner and braking and everything.
So you have also not taken on any fluids, which you can lose 6 to 9 pounds a race this way. It's not healthy for a doctor.
Probably lost about 5 pounds, I think. I better go and rehydrate now.
Well, you have time to get ready for Detroit. Dr. Jonathan Palmer scoring a single point here, a little bit better than not qualifying, I have to say, John.
Thanks very much.
Back to you, Chris.
I give Mark congratulations. That's called pedal dexterity that he practiced here on the closing laps of this competition. There's the bridge leading to Montreal, and the winners on the podium. We'll be back for more after these commercial messages. Okay, so Ayrton Senna of Brazil adds his name to victors of the Canadian Grand Prix. Nelson Piquet has won twice here in Brabham. René Arnoux won in 1983, Michele Alboreto in 85, and Nigel Mansell Williams in 86, the last race. But let's go down now to John Bisognano on pit road.
Derek, unofficially, we have you finished as 7th. It must have been the hardest 7th place finish you've ever had.
Yeah, I just hurt so badly out there in my chest and in my neck. But it's nice to just finish, I suppose.
You're also limping a bit, Derek. What's the problem down there on the leg, the ankle?
Leg is okay. I mean, my leg just went dead during the race. But the worst thing is I couldn't breathe, and my neck was hurting quite badly. I just feel a bit sick, that's all.
Derek, let me ask you this. You decided to run in the same car that was crashed yesterday. Your regular race car, you weren't comfortable with that, and you decided to go out in a car that had a 160-mile-an-hour smash. Why did you make that decision?
Well, first of all, the USF&G Arrows is strong enough to withstand crashes like that, and there was no problem at all after the race. The monocoque was perfect. And I had a problem with my race car this morning with the engine. We never had time to change it, so we opted to run the spare car.
You saw the video of the accident in the ESPN truck yesterday. A new altitude record here for you in Montreal. Let me ask, when you went by that spot, what was going through your mind? Were you afraid?
Don't do the same again.
Don't do the same again.
It hurts.
Derek, we'll let you get out of here. I think you do need a little Perrier. Derek Warwick, in the same car that he crashed at 160 miles an hour, again, a great achievement for the team and for a very brave man to get back in and go battling with this crowd after such a huge shunt.
Okay, thank you very much, John. And the rush now for the fans is to the subway station to get a ride and get a seat on the subway back to downtown Montreal. About a 5-minute ride is all it takes to get into the center of town. You know, Ayrton Senna's performance is outstanding. His pole position for this race was his 5th of the year and his 21st of his 4 seasons in Formula One. And he's already high on the table of pole winners, which are headed by the late and great Jim Clark, who had 33 pole positions in 8 seasons of racing. Juan Manuel Fangio had 28 in 8 seasons. Niki Lauda won 24 in 13 seasons, and Nelson Piquet 24 in 11 seasons, with Senna